I am here in the studio this morning instead of online on Zoom, which is always a nice thing to be able to say, with John Cunningham. John is a businessman. He runs and has founded Cunningham's Property, particularly in the Northern Beaches area of Sydney. He's established that business over at least 30 years. He's going to correct me when we get into it.
And you're actually right, Dan.
Okay. He was for quite some time president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales, is highly respected in the real estate industry, is often the go-to person when the media want to talk about what's happening in the market. And he is chairman of the professional standards for the real estate industry, which says to me one of John's passions is to see ethics and integrity more established in not just real estate but in business broadly. And we might just talk a little bit about the crazy real estate happenings of the last 12 months and what your take on it all is. What's going on?
Well, that word unprecedented, it gets thrown around a lot, but this is seriously unprecedented in my 43 years of real estate. It's the perfect storm. You come out of a crisis situation, which COVID was, something that most people haven't faced in their lifetime. We haven't seen a war in effect affect us on our country for a long, long time. So therefore, these sort of crises are something that enable people to sort of take a step back and reassess their lives. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happened now. The strange thing that happened out of it is a boom in real estate. Now, we had been coming off a boom from 2017. We went into a bit of a hiatus in 18, and then the election came along with the scaremongering in 19, and it all started to filter away. But post-election, we had what they called the ScoMo effect, and the market started booming again. Then COVID came along and thought, oh my God, it's going to be the end of the world. Well, it didn't take long within COVID. By probably June, July last year, we just started seeing the signs of this market taking off again. It virtually didn't slow down. And people started making moves, even through the pandemic, even through the lockdowns, even all those things. It didn't stop people's desire to find a better life. So when you look at the reasons why this has happened, unprecedented low interest rates. I've used that word twice now. I won't use it again. But they're the lowest interest rates we've ever seen. And therefore the cost of borrowing money is extremely low. Banks eased up on their lending in that 2020 period when they came off the back of the Royal Commission, which was more stringent lending requirements, and they eased that off. One of the reasons why the market is what it is that first home buyers have actually got an opportunity to buy in the last 12 months, and they've been doing it in droves. Upsizes, downsizes, divorcees, you name it. All those reasons why people move are in play right now. Investors are creeping back in, but not to the extent that it was driven in the boom markets, particularly the 2017 market. And we haven't had the overseas investors. So the big fear-mongering about Chinese investors taking over Australia, it was such a small portion of people buying property. It didn't really have a huge impact on the marketplace. So these things that are happening right now are driven by families moving. I would say primarily moving up the scale. And around here particularly, where the housing market, people are wanting more space, they're valuing their home more. They've spent a lot of time in their home and they're valuing what they have, or they want something different, and hence why the move. So if something's more valuable to you, it's more valuable as a commodity in the marketplace. So unfortunately, our housing in Australia is seen more as a commodity than as shelter and a necessity. It's just the way that our market's been driven for years, and we are still in a very low supply, extremely high demand market, and that's what this craziness is all about. I'm not sure which way this is going to go. Could be government driven. Reserve Bank could make those decisions, and there could be changes to lending requirements, so it could come from that direction, which there is talk, but they're talking 2022, 23 to start bringing those sort of controls in.
What's it like to have been working in a boom and bust industry for 40 years?
Oh, look, I have a view that it's not the market that we work in, it's what we do in the market that we're working in that counts. And therefore, people still need us. They still need what we have. They still need that. In my view, our primary role is a trusted guide. We need to guide people on a journey. And we need to give them the best possible advice, enable them to make the best possible decisions. If we do that really well, they'll have a great experience with us, and they will get a great outcome as a result. So that's the role that I see that I have in society, and I try and instill that in my team as well. But those booms and busts, for me personally, have not been an issue. Just because I've seen it differently. I haven't seen it as a market. I've seen it as a need that needs fulfilling. And in those tougher markets, my expertise and my advice is actually even more valuable.
Okay.
So therefore, from our business perspective, we really haven't had a negative impact in our business through recessions, through GFCs, through all these different things, because of the way that we operate.
To be a healthy society and to be successful in business is so much more than just about the money. Now, we all know that, but what does that look like in the workplace, and how have you established that culture? Was it something that you set out to do from the get-go, or did you sort of have an epiphany 15 years in and go, okay, I need to change the way I'm doing things? What's been your own journey?
Look, it goes right back to my parents. The upbringing that I had, which was very socially aware, social responsibility. We were doing, as kids, we'd do concerts in our lounge room to raise money for I can't remember the name, the actual thing that we did through the church, but it was Project Compassion. That was who we were raising money for.
Yep.
And we would sell toffee apples, and the neighbourhood kids would come along, and we'd put on shows and stuff like that. So we would go and help up at the Spastic Centre on weekends and things. So it was just in my family genes.
Yep.
My father gave me 4 bits of very good advice when I entered the workforce, and particularly when I started my real estate career. He said, always tell the truth. It's one, it's the right thing to do, but 2, you always forget your lies, so they'll come back and bite you. Second bit of advice was always apply common sense. It may not be that common these days, but when you think of it from the upbringing that you've had, it should hold you in good stead. Third one was, if a job is worth doing, it's worth doing well. It's the classic, measure twice, cut once thing. So he built our house by hand. He was a man who did everything exceptionally well, and he instilled that in us as the kids. There's a place for everything and everything that's placed. Those sort of bits of advice. And the fourth one was just be nice to everyone. It costs you nothing but pays the greatest dividend. And so I applied those things to my work, but it just became, in working in a team environment, it just became natural for me to be a giver. And as a result of that, you receive. Now it's not that you're doing it to receive, it just happens that way. That's karma, it's reciprocity, whatever you want to call it. It comes a result of being a doer. I came from a family of doers. So if something needed to be done, we would do it. If someone needed a volunteer, we'd volunteer. Whatever it was, that was how it was. If someone had to organise something, I'd organise it. That's just, so to me it was just a natural thing. Business became a natural thing for me as an agent and then as a business owner. So applying that to the team to get the best out of people instead of getting more out of people. If you get the best out of people, you get more out of people. But it's a different path to getting into that place. So developing people and their careers and success. You can have many forms of success. My success came from service, to having a service ethos. If I served people well, they would reward me well. And I'm fortunate that I actually ended up in an industry that I love, because I loved property. As a child, I would draw architectural plans at 8 years old. I've actually got a plan of a house I drew at 8 years old. And I would go and visiting building sites with my dad at 10 years old. And so I wanted to know how things got put together. So
that's where you and I differ, John. I was drawing waves and palm trees.
I was drawing surfboards. I was doodling in school, drawing surfboards through a lot of those years. And my learning difficulty through school was I needed glasses, but I would actually pass all the tests because I'd squint because I had astigmatism, and I would pass all the tests. I learned nothing at school. I couldn't read the blackboard. I somehow got through school and no one picked it up. And so I just thought I was an idiot.
Really?
And it wasn't until I left school and went to TAFE and I met Anne, and she said, you should get your glasses, your eyes checked. I said, I've checked. She said, but you squint, of course you're going to pass the test. She said, go and do the test and don't squint. And I needed glasses, got glasses, I could read, I could learn, I could do all these things, and all of a sudden I worked out I wasn't so stupid. And so then it was in thrive mode from that point on. So it was an interesting view of success. Is what was. My father was a hardworking man. He had so much more, but he was also conscious of looking after his family, because his father had left his family when he was young, and he's never going to do that. He made it clear that his number one was his family. And so therefore he never ventured into business. He didn't do any of those things that he wanted to do. So when I did, he was just so supportive of me in doing that. And I think that sort of rubbed off. But I think at the end of it, it was simply just finding something that I was passionate about, something that I actually found I was really good at. People warmed to me. I love talking, love being with people. And again, just tell the truth, help people. And I found it incredibly easy. I couldn't believe what I'd stumbled into this industry.
So if you attracted people to your team over the years who share those values and want to be part of that same team, or you had some people come who really do have quite different values to those things, and you've been able to engender some change in them and they've become part of it?
A bit of both. I also had the view that I could change people, but you fundamentally can't change people. They have to have a certain portion in them, and to me it's a goodness. If there's goodness in people and you can enhance that goodness, sometimes goodness is stepped on and held down, and you find that fundamental goodness in people, and you can develop that and get them to flourish. So yes, finding the right alignment was critical. I've made a few mistakes. One person I spent 10 years trying to change them, and in the end they were just conning me the whole time. And that was a good parting of ways, but I learnt much quicker with other people that I'd made mistakes on, and I think we rarely make a mistake now, and it's because I've got more like-minded people making decisions as well. So I think we could have been a lot bigger business than we are, if we'd just been less selective with who we had, and also less selective with our standards and our ethics. But they're the things that are non-negotiable for us. We have our principles. They've got 20 guiding principles that drive our business, and in fact our three values are principled, responsible, and principled, responsible, and disciplined. So one of the cornerstones of Buddhism is discipline. If you can't achieve what you need to unless you apply disciplines to yourself. You have to take responsibility for what you do and the job that you're doing and the people that you're looking after, and you have to have guiding principles to take you through everything that you do. So they're the things that the team understand. We have our DNA that the team set up. There's 20 corners to our DNA that people understand. And they're the things that people join us, they go, this is who we are. Some people run a mile when they come to an interview and they find out what we're about, and they go, oh my God, you actually do these things. And some people simply don't want to be held accountable.
Tell me a little bit more in practical ways how you instill those values and core principles into the mindset of the team.
It's ongoing, Ian. It never stops. It starts at induction, it starts at the interview. I actually always ask people to do a business plan for me of what they see their future looking like, and from that I can glean a little bit about who they are and what they understand. But as we sort of start the process, the first week is to understand who we are and the Cunningham's way. And what are the things that are, there's three questions I ask them. What are your drivers and motivators? What's the barriers in your life? Where are your roadblocks? And what are the upgrades you want to achieve? So that creates to me the plan for their personal and professional journey that I'm going to take, or we're going to take them on. And that's my primary role these days, is taking people on that personal professional journey. So it's mostly mindset shifts that people come in with a whole lot of beliefs and the different belief systems. If there's a fundamental goodness, we can work on the belief systems. That some of them are quite interesting. But it's that whole letting go to grow concept, letting go of those things that are holding you back, and seeing where you can grow and what you can achieve. And that's the concept of success. What is the measure of success? And it's so different for everyone.
What are some of the blockers that you've had to work with?
Look, it's
Are there
fascinating.
some common themes?
Look, there is. I did a program for the team through COVID last year, which is one thing I did mention was the training that we put into place was massive, because we had to keep people stimulated. And I did this masterclass, and I did it for my sort of rising agents, ones that had just started out and are rising through their career. And it started with those 3 questions that then led into a 8-week course that I created, that just took them through a whole range of things that was right starting from the beginning and going through a learning loop, how to actually learn and why you learn and what you can achieve from learning, what that knowledge then enables you to do, because knowledge leads to self-belief, self-belief leads to confidence, confidence leads to energy, and energy leads to connection. This is what I saw the key elements of what we had to do. People were trying to go from not having the knowledge to being able to connect.
Yeah, right.
And along the way, they weren't actually providing any value. People weren't believing them. So that confidence transfer, that belief transfer has to take place if you're going to have someone do business with you. These are the subconscious things that happen along the way. So if that energy is not there, why is it not there? You've got to trace it back. And I believe it all starts with knowledge. If you are unskilled or don't have the knowledge to do what you have to do, in other words, we're in the advice business. If you don't have that skill, you can't provide the advice. You're just winging it. So when you get that self-belief, wow, the confidence just is oozing out of you. And then you've got the energy and you connect, and then you can go through from that connection to that, building rapport and resonance and all those things that come out the best. And at the end of it, that's where success lives, is actually when you've actually gone through a journey and achieved objectives. And often, whether that's in life or whether that's in business, it's not necessarily all about financial success. It's coming out of it. And I said, what's the feeling you get? And what it drove out of it was happiness. Happiness is the measure of success. If you can work in an industry where you're rewarded for being happy, fantastic. That's the outcome. And that's fortunate that the business that we're in, that's how it played out in that exercise. And I've taken that course to agents in Melbourne. I've had it in various ones around Sydney. And the barriers and the roadblocks are all basically the same. There are two primary words that come out of those things, and it's fear is probably one of the big ones, and knowledge. So you can have a fear of this and a fear of that and a fear of this, and then a lack of knowledge, and so lack is the other one. Lack of this, fear of this. So they're the things that are, everything within those barriers are in that person's control to do something about. There was nothing in there, and they were the same across the 7 sessions I've done with various agencies across the country. The same barriers. And obviously then on the flip side, the same upgrades. It was getting from the barrier to the upgrade, and that is where the mindset existed.
So many of these are interconnected, because you talked about the importance of taking responsibility, and you can only take responsibility for the things that you can control. And you were just saying then, the things that one fears and the things that one has a sense of lack of, those are mindset things that actually, with some facilitation, can be controlled, and light can shine, and then people realize it's not his fault, their fault, the market's fault, my dog's fault. I can take responsibility. So that's very much the animated living life, because there are things in our life that we simply can't control. There are things that happen from left field. COVID, it was a classic on a broader social sense, but there are plenty of other personal tragedies or difficulties that we face that are beyond our control, and it's discerning, well, which things really are under my control, which things can I take control of. Then if I can work on my inner self, there can be all this other stuff that can happen, but it doesn't change the core of who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not shaken by this, that or the other.
Well, we found that through COVID, there was, with 65, 70 people, there's things going on in lives all the time. There's family tragedies, there's health issues, there's relationship issues, there's professional issues that are going on across that amount of people all the time. And some very serious things happen through that time. And all we could do from helping those people, because often when they're in it, there's nobody around them that can help them because they're actually all in it together. So there's got to be something. There's got to be an environment, and we call it it's our Cunningham's Care program, which is our internal team caring, having enough people within our environment that can help. We had the Black Dog Institute come in and do a course with us on mental health issues and how to help each other without being a counsellor, but at least understanding, identifying all these things. It was fantastic. The whole team did it. That was in the year before, 2019. So it was good timing to have everyone having those skills to actually put that into play. But it was very much that, there's a whole lot of things, even when you're in crisis, that when people rise in crises, it's those people who actually understand there's certain things that I can control. Now, I love the concept of the centric circles, where you've got in the middle there, you've got what I control and what I'm comfortable in. And people call it your comfort zone. And there's this great push across all industries to get out of your comfort zone. And I have a different view of that. I see your comfort and your control zone as a nice, comfortable place. Yes, it's good. Don't fight it. Don't think it's a bad thing. But find your confidence zone, because your confidence zone is where you can expand. It's an unlimited thing, right? And this is where this is completely in your control to expand your confidence zone, which is based on your knowledge and your self-belief and all those things. Look at that as something that's ever expanding, and it moves into that space which you thought was stuff that was out of your control, but it moves into what I call an influencing zone. So the influencing that you have in that was out of your control. It's interesting. It's not in your control. It's not out of your control. It's in your influencing zone. And you think about the advice that counsellors have and that sort of stuff. They live in influence zone. They live in that very, very much that space where they're actually expanding people's minds to change mindsets and to see things and change perspectives, looking through different lenses. And that's why one of the things that I do in the training is very much that. So let's expand your confidence zone so that you can, your world can be an ever expanding influencing zone, because that's where, for us, our success is in how well we influence people to make good decisions. So that is a bit of training that's been missing. And I was training two of the top agents in Australia, in Melbourne, who happened to be in a Zoom of 120 agents in this big agency in Melbourne. And they were the ones asking all the questions, going, oh my God, this is like the missing link in our thinking. We haven't thought of that as our role and that as our training role and those sort of things. And it was really interesting that people often miss the obvious because they're caught in this got to get out of your comfort zone concept. So that was a big learning through that as well.
Yeah, that's helpful, to not see your comfort zone as an enemy, but as your sweet spot.
It's your sweet spot. And it's like when you're under the doona, it's not a bad spot to be.
Yeah, that's good. And then extending your confidence zone and your zone of influence, that's really helpful. I know a number of your team take up areas of social responsibility. Can you describe how that happens in your workplace?
One of it's a community care program that we've created that it goes across all kinds of things. You've seen the surf club down there, you've seen the board riders club. They're our things that we sponsor and support, but things that you don't see, for example, are the education scholarship that's down at the surf club to help kids and as much as we can disadvantaged kids to get some assistance with their tertiary education. We've got a lot of schools that we support, but then there's a lot of small things that we do that are driven by individuals within the team who have special interests in certain areas, and we foster that. We want that to be critical. For example, Georgie in our team is one of our partners. She has a particular interest in helping victims of domestic violence. So as a team now, and she's been working with a group called Lighthouse for a couple of years now in fundraising, and we've been supporting them as well. But this next year, we've actually adopted Lighthouse as our major benefactor of what we're going to do, because we see that it's an opportunity for the whole team to be involved in programs there. Little programs, for example, like helping the grandparents with computer skills so they can actually work with kids whose whose mother's been a victim of domestic violence. They've moved out of the home, they're in crisis. How do we get them? Well, we've got the skills to actually teach that. We've got the skills to actually, we can provide computers, we can do things, we can use our office space, our boardroom to do that. We can, and so therefore, when we looked at this and looked at, well, how far can we go with this? What as a whole team, what can we do? And it's not happened overnight. We're actually in the planning phases of it right now, but it'll become a thing for the whole team, and we're looking for things for the whole team.
Well, John, thanks so much. You've focused on the inner life, you've focused on mindset, and you've focused on how do I create better people in this environment, and as a result, you have a wonderfully successful business. So thanks so much for coming on Animated Living, and all the best to you.